Welcome back. So, do you scroll through Pinterest looking for ideas for decor or DIY inspiration? Well, I did, and I've made a video of some of the ideas that inspired me when I was on Pinterest. Now, one of them is not a Pinterest inspired DIY. It was one I just kind of come up with on my own, but all the other ones are inspiration from Pinterest. And I love them. They were so easy to do and fun, and I really hope you enjoy this video. Okay, for this first Pinterest inspired DIY, I found this, and I just happened to find 3 scrap pieces of wood in the garage that were the perfect size. They did not need to be cut, and I'm slowly dwindling down that scrap pile. So I don't remember right offhand what the particular names of these colors were, but I will list them in the description box below. But I just give each piece one coat. I did all sides, front, back, top, bottom, all of it. Just give it all one coat, and it covered fairly well. And I cannot believe these are just scrap pile pieces from my garage. But after I got them all painted, I then went out into the garage, and I just took my orbital sander and just sanded them, roughed them up around the edges, and just give them that distressed look. And before I did all this, I had measured each one and printed out the little sayings: blessed, thankful, grateful, in the font The Skinny. And so I already had those ready to go. I just had to put them on there, and I love how this little DIY turned out. To me, it looks exactly like the inspiration photo. But this was so fun, and now my daughter wants one of these, and I'm thinking about making her one, but with more of the colors that would coordinate with her house. So that's another option. You don't necessarily have to use these particular colors. You can use what works for your home. And with the price of wood, I'm so glad that I seen ahead in time, I guess, and made James save all those scrap pieces of wood. He thought I was crazy at the time, but what you think about me now, James? So I'm going to get all these put on there, and then we will finish embellishing it like our inspiration photo. Okay, so once I had all of my words on there, now it was time to attach them. And all I did was use my hot glue gun, and I put some glue on the bottom of the thankful piece, and then I just kind of laid them down so I could kind of look at them, and I, lined them up the best way I could, what I thought looked good, and then just glued them together, and they stuck really well. I didn't need any wood glue or anything. I mean, you could use wood glue if you wanted to, but the hot glue gun worked just fine. And 2 of these pieces had those slits cut out in the bottom. I don't know what he had used them for, but it's going to work to my advantage on that bottom piece. You'll see in just a moment, but it didn't matter that this one had that slit in it. It didn't matter that the bottom one has it in it. But I'm going to use that split to my advantage when I put the little jute twine on there. But that's how it looks all glued together. And so I just rolled me off a bunch of twine, cut it, and then I doubled it up. And I'm just going to kind of wrap it around there and get it, equal, as good, where I would have enough to make like a little bow at the top. So what I did was I'm putting it in that little slit at the bottom, pulling up to the top, I'm just going to kind of tie it. And I'm going to use like a little bit of hot glue to kind of tack it down where I cross them. Y'all see what I'm doing right there? Sometimes doing these voiceovers trying to explain what you're doing is hard. But I'm just going to take my hot glue and I'm just going to tack that down with a little bit of hot glue, and then I'm going to finish it off. And this one will be finished, and I love it. So what I did after I tacked it down, I did just tie me a knot, and then so that knot was kind of like good and secure, and then I made me a bow. That's just what I did, but you can do it however you feel comfortable. You might want to not have your bow connected and glue your bow on. It's all up to you, but this is what I did. Now I'm just cutting that loop where it'll look like there's two separate pieces, and then I cut them to the size that I want, and that's it. All right, for our next DIY, these are some tags I found on Pinterest, and I'm going to be using these. And y'all, if y'all hear grunting, Buster's in my lap as I'm doing this voiceover. But I just kind of took my little jigsaw, cut the angle out, and got the shape that I wanted. I want to say these things come from Dollar Tree, but I could be wrong, but I think they did. And now I'm going to take my drill, and I'm going to make our hole a little bit larger so our jute twine will go through there. I ended up having to do this a different time as well. I didn't film it, but my hole still wasn't quite large enough, so just double check that when you're doing this. And then I'm going to be using my Waverly Antique Wax. And what I like to do is I keep a bottle of water in there, and I have this paper towel, and I'll just kind of like put a little bit of water on it and kind of get it damp, not saturated, but just damp. And to me, it just makes it go on better, and you just have more control. And I just like using this technique, and so that's what I did. And I'm just going to cover these little tags front and back with my Waverly Antique Wax. And once I get that done, I've already cut out on my Silhouette Cameo the word give and thanks with the two different fonts. And I'm just going to kind of playing with them and see how I want to place them. I didn't know if I wanted to place them up and down in the center, if I wanted to do them off to the side, but ultimately I'm just going to do them in the center. And I'm going to put down the give. And I like to keep this little pin handy. It kind of helps me pull up my transfer tape. If it gets stuck, I can just kind of use that little pin to kind of help get it started and pull up my transfer tape. So I keep me a pin there. It's also good for weeding too. And then I'm going to put my thanks down. And once I get all of these words down, the give and the thanks, then I'm going to go over it with Mod Podge, because as you can tell, for whatever reason, it was probably because it wasn't completely dry, honestly, but the letters just didn't want to stick that great. So I'm just going to kind of go over it with my Mod Podge and seal it in. But before I do that, I'm going to kind of go around the edges of the tags with this 220 grit sandpaper. I'm just kind of rough it up around the edges, just kind of give it a little bit of distressed look, not too much. But I do that to both of the tags. Then I go over it with my Mod Podge. And then we're going to move on to the next step after that. I think these are so cute. If you're enjoying this video, I would really appreciate it if you could give me a thumbs up. Maybe consider hitting that little red subscribe button if you haven't already. I would love to have you part of our little YouTube family. So here I go with the Mod Podge. And I just do like a little thin layer of Mod Podge over these, and I do the whole tag because I don't have the matte Mod Podge, which I want to get. So I knew if I just strictly went over the word, you would be able to see the outline of it, and I just didn't want that. So I just go over the whole tag with it, and it works out fine. So after we do that, then we're going to add our jute string, and I have another little surprise, something I did a little bit different from the Pinterest inspired one. So I will show you that as soon as the Mod Podge dries. Okay, so now that our Mod Podge is dry, we're just going to do our jute twine. We're just going to kind of tie some string in there, and I just knot it. I don't tie it in a bow. And I do this to both, and I try to get them, you know, fairly the same size. But I didn't want them like dangling because I didn't want them like one falling in front of the other one. So I am going to end up gluing mine in position. So after I get my string about where I want it, as you can see right here, I'm kind of trying to decide where I'm going to glue it, kind of looking at it and then sizing it up. So I'm going to tie my string there, and then I'm going to lay it down and I'm going to apply some hot glue and kind of affix it in place so it won't like cover each other, and you'll be able to see both of them. I don't know if that's how it was done originally in the Pinterest one, but that's how I decided to do mine. So I just kind of figure out where I want it, take some hot glue, glue it together. And then in the Pinterest inspired photo, they had a bow at the top of theirs. And I contemplated doing a little bow, but I think my tags are a lot smaller than the actual inspiration photo. So what I did was I had a bag of those little pine cones and acorns and things from the Dollar Tree. So I just took me one of those little pine cones and glued it to the top of mine, and that's what I did, and I think it's so cute. And I think if these were larger, the bow would have been great, and you could have even done a small bow if you wanted to, but I just decided to just do this instead, and this is how it looks. Okay, y'all, this is another fun, easy one. This is some scrap wood James just cut in this pyramid shape for me that we're going to paint to look like candy corn. And originally, I was going to tape it off, but because of the shape of it, it was just too difficult, and I was like, forget that. I'm going to freehand it. So after I got the first one taped off, I didn't tape anymore. I did it all by freehanding it, and it turned out great. It's not an issue, but I saw these on Pinterest, and they were 3 different sizes, so I got them to cut me 3 different sizes down. Again, scrap wood in the garage we had laying around, and I'm just going to paint it to look like candy corn, and it's really that easy. So I can't remember right offhand what shade of yellow this is, but out of all of my like candy corn projects, this is the shade of yellow I should have been using all along. I think this is the right shade of yellow. But I will list it in the description box below. I just don't have it in front of me as I'm doing this voiceover. But I just freehanded it. It turned out fine. And for my orange paint, I did end up getting, I went to my mom's and raided her stash. And she had the perfect orange. It's Pumpkin by Waverly. And so that I do know that. So I'll be using that for the orange, and then I will be using just a white, like, I can't remember the name of the white. Like I said, I will list all these colors in the description box below. But you just paint all 4 sides, let them dry, and then we'll go from there. I'm just going to play y'all some music and just let y'all watch. I've sped it up for you because it's time consuming, but very relaxing at the same time. I really enjoyed this project because it's so simple. So after we get it painted, then we'll move on to the next step.
May you always find your way to higher ground. May you always keep your head held up.
Okay, so once everything is dry, I'm going to take some jute twine, and I decided I was going to pick the shortest of the 3. I've doubled up my twine and just going to wrap it around, a couple times, tie me a little shoelace bow, and call it good. It was that easy, y'all. This was so simple, and I had everything on hand. I love it. You'll have to let me know what you think about it in the comment section down below. Is this something you might try to recreate on your own? You know that there's 2 different kinds of candy corn. There's this kind, and then there's the kind where there's the chocolate color in place of where the yellow's at. You would do like the chocolate. And I thought about making a pair or a set like that as well. But there you have it. It's just that easy. So I hope y'all enjoyed this. It was really fun. Y'all, this might be my favorite DIY to date. Piece of scrap wood from the garage, my antique wax from Waverly. I'm just going to give this a good coat, to kind of stain the wood, I just go over the front, the back, and the sides and get it completely covered. And I love this look in the place of stain. This dries so quick. So once I get all this on here, then I'll let it dry and we'll move on to the next step. So now I'm just taking this leftover piece of the flower pot from a previous DIY. I'm just going to hot glue it on there and put some Spanish moss in there. I'm going to hot glue these little pieces that were in this little bag of pine cones from the Dollar Tree. I just thought they looked so cute and I love the colors together. So I kind of get them on there where they'll stay, and then I'm going to glue the little pine cone on there. And then that little piece of yellow by my glue gun, I'm just going to kind of put it at the bottom to look like one of the petals kind of fell. And I love the way that looks. Now I do take a little extra Spanish moss and put in the sides, kind of fill that up. And I love the way that looked. So it still needs something, y'all. So I'm going to print out a little thing on my Cameo that says, but I love fall most of all. And I think this is just going to be the finishing touch of what it needed. So you'll have to let me know what you think about it in the comments down below. Okay, for this DIY, you're going to need wire, preferably floral wire. I didn't have it. I had this. It's just a little bit thicker, but it worked. And you're going to need some jute twine and your fingers. That's it. So you're going to use your index finger and your middle finger, and you're going to wrap that twine around there about 15 times is what I did. You can do as little or as much as you want. So you just wrap it around your fingers, and then once you do that, then we're going to cut it. And we're going to take our wire and we're going to twist that and twist them all together. Now, this is where the floral wire would be better than what I have because it would be a lot easier to twist. But this worked. I didn't have floral wire, but this worked. And I thought about using the pipe cleaners, but I think you would be able to see them. So I definitely recommend wire for this. And then we're just going to cut off the excess. And as you can tell, I was having some issues, but I get it done. And those little scraggly pieces of the jute twine, you can just cut those off. But once you get all that, then you're just going to kind of separate them like this, and you're going to need 5 bundles of these. So 5 of these. Then we're going to move on to the next step. So this is some pecan wood that James had in the garage. He was going to use to like smoke wood and stuff. So I'm going to use that. The one I saw on Pinterest used cinnamon sticks, which I think would be great because it would smell so good. But I didn't have any cinnamon sticks. I had this instead. So now we're going to take our bundles that we have put together, and we're going to start hot gluing them together. So you're just going to put a little bit kind of toward the top, in the center, and halfway to the bottom. And you're going to take the next one and glue it to that. And if you can see, my little pokey wire is in the middle, so it's not going to hurt anybody or cut anybody. And just like that, that's what you do. And then you're just going to keep doing this. I do 3 before I add my stem. So we're going to do one more. Come on, Donna. Get it together, girl. One more. Kind of to the top, in the center, kind of to the bottom, halfway to the bottom, and stick it on there. Just like that. Okay, now that we have our 3, now I'm going to take my little piece of pecan wood or cinnamon stick if you have that and want that. And we're going to add some glue to that, and then we're going to stick it in the middle. And what I did was I kind of, did a rough fit first to make sure it wasn't going to be too long of a stem. You could always trim off more if you needed it. And now we're going to stick that in the center. And as I do this, I'm going to kind of, where that glue is kind of spreading out, I'm going to use that and kind of start the curve of the pumpkin. Y'all can see what I'm doing. I hope this is making sense. And as I was looking at this would be cute to just do like a half pumpkin if you was doing something that you just needed a half pumpkin. So now I'm going to glue my other two pieces, and we're going to have the cutest little pumpkin ever, y'all. Now let me tell you what I did. I played with the idea of making different sizes, and I have 3 different sizes. This is the small size where you use your index finger and your middle finger. For the next size, I use my index finger, middle finger, and ring finger. And then for the larger size, I use my hand. Now, when I did the larger of the pumpkins, I did use 6 bundles versus the 5. So just FYI. So now I have this leaf. It was a little too large for this little pumpkin, so that's okay. I'm just going to cut it down and make it a little bit smaller. And then I also have some of that little pitberry garland from Dollar Tree. We're going to add to it, and we are going to have us the cutest little pumpkin. Now, I've seen some similar to this at, I think it was Hobby Lobby. They're actually made out of like the grapevine, but I think these are simply adorable, and you could make as many as you wanted. How cute would these be on a wreath? I'm going to use some probably on my tier tray. I have this little pitberry garland. I just going to glue it in there. You see I have my pencil where I did a little curly Q, and that's it. I love it. You'll have to let me know what you think.
You could see yourself just sitting there on my chair. I'm staring at you, you don't even notice. Should've told you straight away, you don't have to be afraid anymore. I know you haven't noticed.
What do you think? How'd I do? Not too bad, huh? I think I did pretty good duplicating or replicating. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. I think I did pretty good on it myself. Pat myself on the back right there. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video and it inspires you to just step outside of the comfort zone, look on Pinterest, get you some ideas, and just have fun with it. That's what it's all about. I mean, at the end of the day, if you don't like it, you can chunk it and start all over. So I hope y'all had fun. I hope you enjoyed. And until next time, bye y'all.